Good afternoon, and maybe open proceedings with the prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to vouchsafe thy blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of thy glory and the true welfare of the people of the Whittlesea City Council. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the state government directives around working from home, this council meeting is being entirely held online via live stream. The meeting is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 2020 and the Minister for Local Government's Good Practice Guideline MGPG 1 for virtual meetings. If at any stage during the meeting a technical issue prevents all administrators from participating in the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned until the matter is resolved. I now pass over to the Chair, Lydia Wilson.
Thank you, Acting CEO. On behalf of the City of Whittlesea, I recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Willen clan as the traditional owners of this place. I'd also like to personally acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. Before we move on with the meeting itself, I'd like to acknowledge that the City of Whittlesea has won 2 awards at this year's Parks and Leisure Australia Awards in the Victoria-Tasmanian region. Sincere congratulations from the panel of administrators to our leisure team for taking out the Strategic Planning Award for our visionary netball and basketball strategy. This strategy ensures that our community will have access to a quality infrastructure that supports equitable participation for years to come. Also, well done to Leisure Planning Coordinator Stephanie Ristevska, and she's been named David Aldous Young Professional of the Year. It's really fantastic for us to see Council receive industry acknowledgement for our leadership and foresight that will benefit our fast-growing communities, and for one of our staff to receive such a wonderful honour. We're extremely proud of our leisure team and also of Stephanie. I note all administrators are present. Administrators, if you have a conflict of interest in any item on the notice paper, you may verbally disclose the type and nature of the interest now, but you must make a declaration immediately before consideration of the matter in question. Administrators, are there any items for which you have a conflict of interest to declare?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Administrators, I now seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council, which was held on the 4th of August 2020. Could I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Wilson. I'll now put the matter to a vote. All those in favour of confirming the minutes? Motion carried. Manager Governance, are there any questions from the public?
No, Chair, there are no questions from the public today.
Thank you. I note we do have one petition from residents in Cicada Court, South Morang. Will an administrator like to table the petition, please?
Yes, Chair, I'll do that. Chair, I table a petition from 8 residents in Cicada Court, South Morang, requesting Council shorten the white dividing line in Cicada Court, South Morang, to assist in management of on-street parking. I move that petition be received and referred to officers to undertake the requested changes to shorten the white dividing line in Cicada Court, South Morang, to assist in the management of on-site parking. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second that motion.
Administrator Wilson, are there any questions? If not, I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, administrators. Motion carried. Administrators, I note our procedural matters local law doesn't easily provide flexibility for administrators to speak to matters if there's no opposition. This matter has been addressed in the governance rules that are being considered at the meeting today. Therefore, I move that we suspend standing orders to provide all administrators with an opportunity to speak to matters in the notice paper if they wish, without the need to indicate opposition for the purpose of debate and for other purposes. Could I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Administrators will now be working through the agenda, and we have item 6.1.1, COVID-19 Acting CEO Update on Key Issues, September 2020, and I'll ask the Acting CEO to provide an update to both the Council and community on the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on our community. Thank you, Acting CEO.
Thank you, Chair and administrators. Well, just over 4 weeks have been completed under Stage 4 restrictions, which were introduced on the 2nd of August to run for a 6-week phase. Stage 4 has meant further restrictions, of course, on businesses and workers, as many more retail businesses have had to temporarily close their premise whilst through the construction industry operates to permitted level. The full local impact of the figures are released. COVID-19 started the August, 5th August, for them to now any to 2.
Chair, I wonder whether we might ask the Acting CEO to commence his address again, but without the video camera, and see whether that improves the reception.
Thank you, Manager Governance. I think that might be a very good idea. Acting CEO, we wonder if you could please recommence your report on your update on the COVID-19 pandemic without your camera on. Acting CEO, can you hear us? Apologies for the technical difficulties which we've been experiencing, and we will restart item 6.1.1, COVID-19 Acting CEO Update on Key Issues, September 2020. And if I could call on the Acting CEO to provide an update to both the Council and the community in relation to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Administrators. Well, some 4 weeks ago, we've just completed 4 weeks under Stage 4 restrictions, which were introduced on the 2nd of August to run for a 6-week phase. Stage 4 has meant further restrictions, of course, on businesses and workers, as many more retail businesses have had to temporarily close their premises, whilst manufacturers, warehouses and the construction industry have had to reduce operations down to permitted levels only. The full local economic and employment impact of these measures will become clearer in the next quarter when local data and figures are released. In respect of active COVID-19 cases, the city started the month with 437 cases, and this number peaked at 553 on the 13th of August before starting to fall over the second half of the month to a level now of 152 as at this morning. So many of the city's cases are linked to major local outbreaks, and in particular the largest clusters that were experienced at the Batocki Small Goods at Thomastown and Epping Gardens Aged Care, both those facilities reaching over 200 cases each. But as such, the city has remained to be the 4th highest local government area for COVID-19 cases, but has dropped a place to 5th in the last days of August. Just under half of the city's current 152 active cases are recorded in the postcode of Epping, which has 72 cases as we stand, and a lot of this is attributable to the Epping Gardens cluster. As a postcode, Epping remains at the 10th highest postcode for active infections. Thomastown had also peaked at around 74 at the start of August, but now gladly has an active case number of just 11. These trends are, of course, very encouraging, and they point to the effectiveness the Stage 4 restrictions are having to date from a public health perspective. In August, Council's focus remained on coordinating and supporting its response and relief efforts across the city. This has included working alongside the state government to facilitate a number of drive-through testing sites, namely now at Mernda and South Morang, assisting businesses to adapt and implement Stage 4 restrictions, supporting shopping precincts to manage social distancing, and responding to residents and businesses reaching out with financial hardship applications and requests to Council. Many residents sadly are reporting increased feelings of isolation during Stage 4 restrictions, and we continue to work very closely with our many community and social services partners and agencies across the community and across our municipality to assist those that are vulnerable with the basic essentials of emergency food relief, essential items, and importantly, mental health support for those most vulnerable. A record number of requests are landing with our human and social services agencies for help from the community. And on behalf of our organisation, I pay tribute to those agencies and the health services that are performing unprecedented levels of heavy lifting to support our community in this way. In the direct public health space, the Diamond Plenty Valley Health Service is running our testing sites in the municipality, whilst Northern Hospital is looking after the city's acute cases and the clinical loads that have come from that. The pandemic remains very much a matter of being in response and relief mode. and Council continues to play a strong role in that phase. It's indeed encouraging to see the virus containment strategies continuing to lower the numbers of coronavirus cases and their spread. And we are very much looking forward, administrators, to turning our attention to the recovery phase. And to assist in this endeavour, Council is active in exploring and rolling out community and business impact surveys, which are currently underway in the city. Thank you, administrators.
Sorry. Thank you, Acting CEO. Before taking questions, I would like to move this item from the Chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Do you have any questions of the Acting CEO?
No.
Administrator Bilson?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Acting CEO. You mentioned the South Morang and Mernda testing sites, Mr. Carboni, and also the pop-up site in Whittlesea. There were reports of fire damage at the Mernda testing site. Is there any information you can share with the Council about that?
Through the Chair, thank you, Administrator Bilson. Yes, we do understand that there was some fire damage to the marquee infrastructure last night, and that did interrupt testing today. It's expected that the resumption testing will be back online tomorrow, and police are involved in investigating the matter. This is a site that is directly managed by the Diamond Plenty Valley Health Service for us, and we're there to offer them support as they may require.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? No. So in moving this item, there's a few key issues that I would like to highlight. As the Acting CEO indicated, it's extremely pleasing to see that the numbers of active COVID-19 cases within the municipality have significantly dropped. As he has indicated, we were in the mid-500s and now we've got 152 active cases, which is really heading in the right direction and very pleasing. It's important, however, that we can't be complacent because as the Acting CEO indicated, we are still number 5th in terms of the highest number of COVID cases across different municipalities, and we also still have a number of local outbreaks. Things are certainly trending in the right direction, but we're not out of the woods yet, and we still have got a way to go in relation to our response efforts before we can head into recovery. It's imperative that we continue to support the work of the Commonwealth and state governments, and any of the initiatives that we as a council implement are compatible and complementary to the initiatives of the other levels of government. As the Acting CEO indicated, we're very keen to understand and track the local impact of COVID-19, and hence we have been undertaking a number of local surveys so that we can gather the necessary data to inform our work. And again, on behalf of the administrators, our thanks go out to all of our staff for their continued efforts in providing essential services to our community. And as Mr. Carboni mentioned, to the many frontline staff, whether they are community health services, doctors, nurses, paramedics, emergency services, thank you all for the support that you provide for our community, both in terms of a health perspective, but also equally in terms of isolation and mental health issues. Would the seconder like to speak to this report?
No.
So I'll then put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion was unanimously carried. Thank you, administrators. Item 6.1.2, Pandemic Relief Fund. Do I have a mover? Administrator Bilson.
Chair, the recommendation with an amendment, and I hope that's now being projected onto the screen. So it's a new point 1 to confirm $1 million contribution from the 2019-20 net cash position for further emergency relief and response work as a result of the continued impact of the ongoing COVID environment. Just for convenience, the other two recommendations relate to $300,000 for community support programs, including emergency relief, and also $500,000 for the establishment of a business assistance program.
Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second with amendments, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Are there any questions?
Chair, if I may, through you to the Acting Chief Executive, I'd expect many of the business owners are feeling quite overwhelmed and somewhat anxious about an uncertain future that COVID's popped them into. The idea around grants can be a good idea, and I'm pleased that that's part of the work that officers are developing, but also the idea around getting mentorship, quality advice, emotional health support. They're all equally valuable, particularly for small business owners trying to navigate their way through and into a prosperous future post-COVID. Through you, Chair, to the Acting Chief Executive Officer, what kind of investment do you envisage we can accommodate in terms of mentoring, business support and other assistance?
Thank you, Administrator Wilson, through the Chair. And yes, absolutely quite right. The impacts are economic and provide a series of webinars as part of the first stage of relief and support for our businesses. And we're about to start a second series of those webinars that are covering more of the practical topics that our own businesses have indicated to us would be of value, of practical value. And they would involve issues such as negotiating rent relief with landlords and having tactical approaches to pivoting their businesses. There is a session coming up on this Friday for our businesses, which has very gladly going to involve the Victorian Small Business Commissioner in attendance to actually cover on some of those strategic issues. It's important that Council does obtain high quality advice from authoritative experts as well as our businesses who are equipped to really offer real value and approaches to businesses that can count. We'll be looking at doing much more with our mentoring and business support packages to help businesses adapt and apply themselves to e-commerce solutions, online content, or in other innovative ways that can help increase the vitality and vibrancy of our local businesses in any which way that we are able.
Chair, might I be able to follow up with a second question?
Please do, Administrator Bilson.
The Council might recall we discussed at previous meetings, the excitement I have about businesses adapting and adjusting to these new environments, and also what role the City of Whittlesea can play to support ongoing viability. And we talked about utilising footpaths, car parks, even spaces so that cafes and restaurants can a sit down, an outdoor, socially distanced service to support their ongoing. I see other concepts have picked up this idea, even the City of London. I'm just wondering, have we made any progress in relation to how we can use some of those spaces for reactivation of our hospitality, cafe and restaurant community in Whittlesea?
Thank you, Administrator Wilson, and through you, Chair. And may I also thank the panel of administrators that have been very intuitive and helpful in these sorts of discussions around activating spaces. But the activation of spaces in and around businesses will be a key theme that will drive our business assistance grants approach. so that there's certainly opportunities for businesses to get creative and for council to be creative alongside our businesses with how we can encourage more people to visit and transact with our local businesses. And we certainly do support the ideas that you've raised, Administrator Wilson. We're looking through some of the practicalities of how we can attend to those through permits and relaxation and expansion of uses of space that normally might be occupied by cars or other obstacles that we could probably clear the way for. So thank you very much for that encouragement.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Acting CEO. Any further questions?
Through the chair, I've got a question for the Acting CEO, and it's really just continuing on in Administrator Bilson's question around our small businesses in the municipality. And I think revitalising our streetscapes is going to be even more important once we have more people actively moving around the community when we come out of the stages of lockdown. And so I'm just wondering, so that will encourage local shopping and restaurants and businesses and those to start to hopefully thrive again as we slowly come through the pandemic of people being allowed out. And I'm just wondering if you can update us on if there's been any redevelopments on our streetscape plan.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And through you, the Chair, it is a really timely initiative, and Council's been able to bring forward some upgrades at the Thomastown and Laylaw shopping precincts, and they are actually underway. And they've been accelerated over the last few months whilst there's been less activity in the streets. So it allowed us to engage with the works with fewer disruptions. We've also recently been successful in securing a $1 million grant from the Victorian Government's Building Work Stimulus Package to bring forward some other planned works for these shopping precincts that would be completed within the first half of 2021, which is really, really timely timing for recovery strengthening. So thank you very much, Administrator.
Thank you. Any further questions, Administrator Duncan?
Yes, I've just got one follow-up question really in regards to the community in terms of Pandemic Relief Fund. And I'm just wondering if the funding is only going to apply to key agencies like Whittlesea Community Connections, our local food bank and places like that. Will groups that provide services to the disadvantaged communities, including the cold and Indigenous communities, also be eligible to access some of that funding and grants?
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And through Chair, yes, absolutely is the answer, Administrator. Funding is available to all of our NGOs, including the cold and Indigenous groups that are providing direct support to people living in the city of Whittlesea. For example, during stage one and the use of our emergency relief fund, non-government organisations that were included in some of that financial support were able to reach out and help our Sikh community as well as our forgotten international students that have missed the boat in any other channel of government support. And so they were very, very niche groups that we were able to get through the efforts of our NGOs.
Thank you.
Anything further, Administrator Duncan?
No, thank you.
Acting CEO, I do have one further question, which is also in relation to the funding that's going to go to community support programs. And my query is, I note in the report that the funding is going to be directed towards emergency relief. And my query is, would it not be better to await the outcomes of the community survey? And I note that the survey is actually concluding next week, which is the 7th of September, to wait to see where those funds might be better directed.
Thank you, Chair. And quite rightly, as you suggest, Council is conducting the surveying of community about how COVID-19 has impacted both individuals and families. Yesterday, Council's preparation of this interim report was based already on 348 people contributing to the survey so far, and it's clear that from what I can understand, the report has showed 46% of our community having difficulty assessing items of basic need, being able to go shopping or having shopping delivered were the most common reasons from this reach into our organisation. But our local government our non-government organisations and community support agencies can get these services on the ground to the most vulnerable in the most efficient and effective way, and we'll be looking to further work with those in that distribution.
Thank you, Acting CEO. And so our survey results really indicate, in any case, that the bulk of, or many of the people who responded are actually seeking practical assistance, which is where we're directing the funds to. So thank you for that. Would the mover like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate that this isn't the first of the support measures that Whittlesea's pursued. It is a logical continuum of some good work, certainly in the area of COVID recovery. There is the co-design recovery fund that I think might have been alluded to in the formal text of the recommendation. Also, you've alluded, Chair, to the earlier instalment of the urgent emergency relief fund, and certainly in the business support area, this next stage of business assistance and resilience programming work from the City of Whittlesea is naturally on top of other economic hardship relief rate provisions, other work that's been going on, and will be informed by the local business community and the survey insights. So can I commend the motion to the Council, and thank you for your indulgence, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In that case, I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion was unanimously carried again. Thank you. Item 6.1.3, which is the 2019-20 New Works Programme year-end report, and I'm happy to move this item from the Chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thanks, Administrator Duncan. Just in relation to questions on this particular report, I just wonder if I could ask a couple of initial questions. Acting CEO, I note with great pleasure that we have received considerable additional funding from a range of federal and state government stimulus packages, and you actually just noted some new funding that has also just been recently awarded. I wonder if you could confirm the total value then of our Capital Works program for 2020-21, including obviously carry forward funds and also additional grant funding. What is the total amount of the capital expenditure program?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And the size of the capital program for 2021 is now just upon $90 million. And it is inclusive of $4 million received to date in grant stimulus funding from state and federal government.
Thank you, Acting CEO, and that then leads me into my second question. $90 million is a sizable capital expenditure program, and it may actually be one of the largest capital programs that this municipality has on record. I wonder whether you could comment on our ability to effectively manage the delivery of this year's capital expenditure program given its magnitude.
Thank you, Chair, and you know, a very pertinent question in terms of the pre-planning that's required to be able to achieve a running rate of delivery. And I'm happy to advise that, you know, many of the resource plans that are prepared for the tackling the project management of capital works are done by way of practice 2 years in advance. to allow sufficient project management resources to be on the ground running from the beginning. We've already secured additional resources for 2021 and embedded those as capitalised parts of the operation, and we review these consistently throughout the financial year to make sure we're keeping pace.
My apologies. Thank you. And are there any further questions?
Yes, Chair, through you to the Acting CEO. Can you please confirm what the original delivery date was now that we have a revised and adjusted delivery rate of 86.3%?
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. The capital works budget for the year 1920 was set at $87 million, and the delivery on that, the raw delivery, was $67 million, which as a raw result is 76.6%. The year was interrupted, as we've reported in the past, by certain COVID events, but also certain latent conditions that have pushed that delivery rate this year. But the performance measurement in this area often allows for those unforeseen conditions to be applied, and hence the effective reported rate is 86, a delivery of 86.3%. But stripping that back, raw numbers, 76.6% delivery.
Thank you. And just following on from that, can you advise then what the expected delivery target will be for the 2021 program?
Yes. Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And again, this is a minimum delivery of 85% is the standard approach for our organisation. It's commensurate with those councils that are delivering at the higher end of capital delivery. And whilst there will be challenges, it will be, with the transition to some interruption to the construction industry already being felt with limitations, there is going to be a slow start, but what it does mean is the council needs to be active in the fast catch-up, and we'll be aiming for that same 85% plus target for 2021.
Thank you.
Administrator Bilson, I note that you've got a further question.
Oh, look, I was happy with the answer we received, Chair. Just noting that it, similar to Administrator Duncan, just wondering what the coming year looked like, given it's a bumper capital works program of $90 million and those latent conditions that the Chief Executive referred to, you know, service connections, component supplier delays, those sorts of things. I was really keen to know what we could anticipate for this coming year, and the Chief has already answered that question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. If there's no further questions, I'd just like to make a few concluding remarks. Obviously, this report provides us with an overview in relation to the end of financial year results for the 2019-20 New Works program. It was already reported to Council at the third quarter that there were a number of unavoidable delays in relation to a number of projects, and they were associated with not just COVID-19 impacts, including sourcing of materials and labour, but also weather conditions and some service authority delays. Despite those delays, we've obviously made really good progress in delivering on our New Works program, and I particularly note the adjusted delivery rate of 86.3%, which is an exceptionally good performance under the circumstances. And in concluding, I'd really like to thank and congratulate our staff for their efforts in achieving that delivery rate. Would the seconder like to speak to the item? No? No. I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6.1.4, the 2019-20 net cash year-end report. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Administrator Bilson.
Chair, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation, but propose the addition of a fourth point, which should would like to talk to that when the opportunity arises. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. I'm very happy to second the motion with the amendments that you have outlined. So are there any questions? Administrator Bilson.
Thank you, Chair. Now, my question through the Acting Chief Executive Officer is, could he and his good officers confirm the nature of the surplus, given that the way it's been accounted for under Victorian Auditor General guidance has a lot of prepayments of grants and funds committed but needing to be brought to account this year, even though they'll be expended next year. So could we just get an overview of the nature of the surplus, please?
Thank you, Administrator Wilson, through your chair. Thank you for the question. Yes, and as you've quite rightly pointed out, Administrator Wilson, the council was required to take up funds from state and federal grants received in advance of their actual spend, which will be mainly in the 2021 year, and they total over $10.6 million in the take up in advance. But when you strip that back, Administrator Wilson, the way we can assess the contribution to the surplus is probably in three areas. There was a higher than budgeted growth of our city over the municipality over the last year, which meant a furthering of our ability to collect developer contributions and other rate-based increases. And that was in the tune of about $2.7 million of our carry forward favourability. Secondly, there was an amount probably in the vicinity of $2 million that is attributable to those savings we've been able to achieve in operations, and also deferred or suspended expenditure upwards of $2 million. And thirdly, the last characteristic of the surplus is some savings around the 1.6 million mark on our capital projects and program this year. And these as a collective provide an opportunity for their reuse into respective allocations for the 2021 year and their application for the good of the city.
Are there any further questions?
Oh no, I'm good, thank you.
Administrator Bilson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Chair. It picks up on what the Acting Chief Executive Officer had said. When you take out those prepayments, when you take out the carry forward of works and those other committed expenditures that are simply into the this financial year, there's around $1.69 million of savings, genuine savings, from implementation of the Capital Works program. And that part 4 of the recommendation that I've sought to add seeks to bring forward a report from officers about the application of that savings on Capital Works to have it applied to some worthwhile projects that really will act as a contribution to the local stimulus in the economy and support recovery. And they're also of a nature and scale that would make them suitable for local contractors, local businesses, and be really supportive of local economic recovery. That recommendation points to potential projects being investments in our sustainability as a city. That's always a worthwhile and constructive step. The improvement in streetscapes, and Administrator Duncan pointed to the importance of that work and some of the initiatives that are already underway, and we could perhaps extend that further into other local strip shopping areas and precincts. an enhancement or action to address missing links in our pedestrian and bike path network. And who could not have seen all of the active transport people or out there for exercise or enjoyment in our parks and in these bike and pedestrian trails that's seen a real uplift in activity during the COVID era. And I suspect that trend's likely to stay. And of course, trying to progress the gathering place concept that's been in contemplation for some time. So may I commend that amendment and hopefully with the panel's support, look forward to considering the officer's recommendations in the near future.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. I totally echo the sentiments that you have expressed and probably won't say a lot in relation to this report or the additional motion. But I think, as you indicated, the intent behind it is really to look at any additional capital works which could provide real community benefit in the short term. And you also use the term, it could be our own local stimulus package. So really looking forward to that. But I would also add that I greatly support the allocation of the additional $1 million for further emergency relief and response to the continued impacts of COVID-19. And again, in concluding, I would congratulate our staff for the achievement of substantial additional grants, and we noted those earlier as well, for the municipality through a range of state and federal government programs, including our award of the Working for Victoria program and a number of other infrastructure and capital projects. And I also look forward to the further officer report at a forthcoming council meeting, particularly to progress that additional motion number 4. Any additional comments from administrators before I put the item to a vote?
Yes, Chair, I would just like to make a comment further to the addition of point number 4 from Administrator Bilson. I fully support this motion and look forward to the officer's report coming to a future council meeting. But I would just like to comment on the gathering place, and because I'm very keen to see this come to fruition and get momentum, because it has been on the council agenda for many, many years now. And I think phase 1 of a report outlining the gathering place with consultation with the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group, I would very much like to encourage officers to include that in their report back to council when it comes to us for consideration.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. On that note, I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 6.1.5, certification of 2019-20 financial statement and unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Administrator Bilson, and I'm happy to second the motion. Are there any questions?
No.
No questions? Would you like to speak to the motion, Administrator Bilson?
Mainly to compliment the staff. What a terrific result. An unconditional audit report, so that's very reaffirming of our systems and our controls. And I think it might be fair to suggest we might be one of the first councils in the state to have its financial statement finalised and, you know, topped off with an unconditional audit report. So may I, through you, Madam Chair, and the Chief Executive, pass on my respect and admiration to the finance team for achieving a really good outcome and getting this financial statement all done and dusted so quickly after the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. And in seconding this item, I would also just echo those comments. They were obviously exhaustive efforts of our staff across the organisation, and the appreciation of those efforts was also recognised by the independent members of our Audit and Risk Management Committee. So on that note, I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 6.1.6, Public Transparency Policy 2020 Do I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And again, I'm happy to second the motion. Are there any questions?
Through the Chair, I don't have a question, really just a statement about the new policy which is required by the Local Government Act 2020. And I think this is a new relief to people to have a transparency policy. This policy will set out in a single document how the Council will promote openness and transparency in council decision-making process and raise public awareness of the access of council information, and I think that's very important for the community. The policy also commits council to a set of transparency principles that are consistent with the new Local Government Act. Currently, much of the information the council is required to make available in the public registers is maintained in a laborious paper form, and it is often only available for inspection at the Civic Centre physically. So I think this is a great opportunity to digitalise this information so it's easily accessible for everybody. The policy will clarify how information will be made available on the website, which I've just spoken about where possible, and over time the Council's website will be modified to make accessing all the information as simple as possible. The privacy of individuals and the confidential information will be protected as appropriate in line with statutory and legislation. The policy will also set out a complaints process, which I think is very important if a person is not satisfied with the decision about the release of the council information. So I think this is a very great step forward in terms of being fully transparent and good governance, and I hope that the community access this information as they are required to, and through the website and other digital platforms in the future.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And in seconding this motion, I also strongly endorse this new policy, not just because it is a requirement of the new Local Government Act 2020, but because of some of its fundamental principles. And you've really outlined the framework associated with this particular policy. I just highlight a few of the specific elements of the policy. Obviously, it aims to ensure that council meetings are open and transparent and that we minimise confidential forums, that there is genuine community engagement to inform our decision making, and that's obviously the concept of deliberative engagement is a fundamental tenet of the new Local Government Act. And importantly, publishing and making accessible information, whether it's a policy or our register of gifts received, travel undertaken, or conflicts of interest. So it's making it much easier to navigate and accessible. So I'm very pleased to second this item in the interests of strengthening further our overall disclosure and accountability. So I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is unanimously carried. Item 6.1.7, Governance Rules, Local Government Act 2020. I'm happy to move this item with a minor change to some of the wording relating to the question time portion of the meeting, and the changes that are being proposed are being projected.
Yes, Chair.
Administrator Wilson, are there any questions?
No, Chair.
So if there's no questions, I would just like to make a few comments in relation to this report and its motion. Again, as like the previous item, the governance rules are a new document and a new requirement under the Local Government Act 2020. And they incorporate many of the provisions of the existing procedural matters local law, which is the local law that sets out how council meetings are actually run. They've been slightly modified to obviously reflect the fact that there's a panel of administrators in place for the next 4 years. And once the council has had time to work under the governance rules, they'll be subject again to further review in 2021, which I very much welcome. Would the seconder like to speak to the item? Thank you, Administrator Bilson.
Look, the rules contain principles that guide council when making decisions, and these align very well with the policy that's just been adopted, the public transparency policy. And some of those features that I draw attention to are considering matters and making a decision which is balanced, ethical and impartial, making decisions on merit free from favouritism or self-interest, and also adhering to those important principles of natural justice, including ensuring that any persons whose rights will be directly affected by a decision of council is entitled to communicate their views and have their views and interests considered. So I support your motion, Chair, and commend this policy, the new governance rules, to the council.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. To a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is again unanimously carried. Item 6.1.8, the amended council meeting schedule for 2020, and I'm happy to move this item from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Are there any questions?
No, Chair.
No. In moving this item, I want to just simply note that this report is self-explanatory. It's simply resolving on council meeting dates until the end of the year. And this is obviously in a COVID-19 context where we're live streaming of council meetings. But I'd also like to foreshadow that in setting the dates for council meetings beyond this time, I'm really hopeful that we'll have the opportunity for much greater community engagement, including several council meetings to be conducted at community venues. So on that note, unless the seconder would like to make any further comments? No?
No, Chair.
I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried. Item 6.1.9, Assemblies of Administrators through to the 1st of September 2020. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Administrator Duncan. Are there any questions?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Would the mover or seconder like to speak to the item?
No, ma'am.
No, thank you.
I'll then put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Item 6.4.1, 2020-32, construction of McLean's Road Kindergarten Bundura, tender evaluation report. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson, and I'm happy to second this item. Are there any questions?
No, Chair.
If there are no questions, I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried. Item 6.5.1, Epping Cemetery Trust, Freedom of Information Requests and Abstract of Accounts. I'm happy to move this item, noting the insertion of the names of administrators Wilson and Bilson into the motion. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, that's easy for you to say, ma'am.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Are there any questions?
No, Chair.
There being no questions, I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. I note that there are no notices of motion. If any of the administrators have delegates' reports to discuss, they're very welcome to do so. Administrator Duncan?
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to discuss that I attended on the 17th of August the Whittlesea Youth Advisory Committee meeting, and just my congratulations to that committee. What a fabulous group of young people these committee members are, and I'm very much looking forward to working with them in the future. Some of the topics we discussed is obviously employment, education and training, and also things about know your rights at work and those sorts of things. I guess when you're in that youth bracket, you're not quite sure of Other things we discussed were young people's transitions to adulthood, so whether you go from school to university or straight from school to the workforce. So I very much, my credit to that group, they're a fabulous group of people. On the 26th of August, I also attended the Whittlesea Municipal Fire Management Planning Committee meeting. Again, fantastic group across all the services of emergency services in the municipality. One of the big takeouts is working on the draft roadside strategy, but also around that community engagement component prior to bushfire season. So I'm very much looking forward to working with that committee on those activities. I also attended on the 27th of August the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group meeting, which was again another fantastic meeting, and I think a great step forward with the relationship between the committee and the council, and I very much look forward to working with them on lots of different initiatives to help that community, but also, as we've touched on earlier, in regards to actually getting the gathering place to either a temporary in the first instance or something else at some point in time that we close out on that commitment that we made many years ago. I also attended the Audit and Risk Committee for the library, which was quite interesting. That was my first meeting. Prior to that, I was conflicted to attend the board meeting because of a clash of other meetings, but I'm very much looking forward to being part of that Audit and Risk Committee for the Yarra Plenty Ranges Library. So that's what I've been up to in August, and it's been fantastic to finally get amongst the community.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Bilson.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a busy August, and if I could report through you to the Council and community on the Whittlesea Disability Network meeting on 11th of August. Video conference exceptionally well chaired by Council Stephen Bell and well supported by Council's community wellbeing team. It enabled participants to be briefed on the work being done by Whittlesea Community Connections in their COVID community response, and that was delivered by Catrice Bolden. There was also a discussion on the role of various Working for Victoria supported staff across the Access team, an update on Council's follow-up to a suggestion from Ivan at the previous meeting about a stronger focus and commitment to access as part of the Australian Building Control Standards. We were updated on the city's COVID Community Impact Survey led by Kylie Dean and the Research and Engagement team. And I add my encouragement to yours, Madam Chair, about having citizens and businesses get involved and share their insights and experiences. BSL gave us an overview on their activity in the city, and Michael Parrymore and Debbie Anderson briefed us on that good work, and also some work on regulated role of access consultants by Joe Manton. That was followed up by a Yarra Plenty Regional Library employment subcommittee meeting on the 11th of August. On the 13th of August, I joined with Ben Harries, our Acting Director, City Transport and Presentation, and our Recycling and Waste Unit Manager, Brad Byrne, to be a part of the Metropolitan Local Government Waste Forum. We learned a lot of things there, Madam Chair. It was a busy time in this space. You know, for some of us that get excited about these things, which includes me, what is the local council's role in transforming waste and recovery services was a real key theme of the evening, including some learnings from container deposit schemes in other states and what that's meant for local government. We're also given an update on the transition that's underway with regards to local government's work on yellow lid recovery, and also what the state government is doing in setting up some of the new and transforming resource recovery services in our state. I should add, and I was prompted by Mr. Harries, that you know, our region has a very significant recycling hub in Cooper Street. So this got a mention and was discussed as part of the Metropolitan Waste Group's work, and also our FOGO, for those that aren't waste funkies like me, that's Food and Green Organics service. The fact that that's been rolled out this year, that also received a mention, and Brad Byrne's been re-elected to be part of the Technical Advisory Reference Group. Then there was the Youth Advisory Committee on the 17th of August, really well co-chaired by Tabitha Anderson and Administrator Duncan, and my colleague Administrator Duncan has already given a good overview there. 20th of August, was the Whittlesea Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Really good work there. We've touched on in the meeting proper today. On the 21st of August, a DELP Local Government Act Implementation Matters webinar. It was really useful, and the focus being on how can we make strategic planning and reporting more integrated so it works better for councils and their communities. And then capped off the month of August on the 27th with the Yarra Plenty Regional Library Board meeting, hearing about excellent progress with its financial statement, a really productive, high-performing year. And that was August. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Obviously, all of the administrators have had a very busy time over the past month, not just with council briefings and council meetings, but also in relation to our representation on our key advisory committees. I have attended a number of meetings over the past month, and particularly I would note 4 meetings that I've attended of Whittlesea Community Connections on the 5th of August and the 14th of August, and also the 21st of August, which all related to subcommittee work in relation to the CEO performance review, and also the full board on the 17th of August. That meeting really focused very much on providing us with a comprehensive update on all of the agency's COVID-19 efforts, and a number of other items, including the financial performance. Alongside Administrator Bilson, I also attended the Audit and Risk Committee, and obviously the 2 main parts of that particular meeting related to the annual financial reports for the year end of the 30th of June 2020 and the annual performance statement also for the year ended 30th of June 2020. But also importantly, we had an update in relation to risk management efforts across the organisation, and also the fraud and corruption control policy and plan. So that was a very beneficial Audit and Risk Committee meeting. On the 27th of August, I attended the Northern Councils Alliance, and that there was a really comprehensive debrief at that Alliance meeting in relation to the launch of the City Deal, and also the COVID-19 impacts across the Northern Region councils, and also an update in relation to the local government elections for the multiplicity of councils that are still proceeding to election. And then on the 27th of August, alongside Administrator Duncan, I also attended the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group, and that was an extremely beneficial meeting, reporting back on their meeting with all of the administrators, but also doing updates in relation to the redevelopment of their website, updates in relation to the refreshing of the Whittlesea Reconciliation Action Plan, and a number of other matters which were extremely beneficial. And I'm going to just end my report on a high, which is really to note that administrators attended the virtual launch of the Northwest City Deal on the 24th of August. And this City Deal is really all about unlocking employment and economic development opportunities across 8 precincts of the Northern and Western Councils. In relation to the City of Whittlesea, the City Deal is absolutely critical, particularly given the local impact of COVID-19 on our economy, and we've already talked about that today in relation to COVID-19 report and the pandemic report. And I'd particularly highlight just 2 of the key initiatives that are of enormous benefit, not just to Whittlesea, but to a multiplicity of other councils as well. But they are the Beveridge Intermodal Freight Terminal, which would essentially unlock some 18,000 jobs and improve freight movements in and out of Melbourne and Geelong, and also the plan to build a food innovation hub next to the Melbourne wholesale market at Epping. So we really welcome the City Deal as a key vehicle to sort of kickstart economic recovery And again, I note that the benefits are not just for Whittlesea, but for a multiplicity of other municipalities in the north and the west of the state. So on that note, could I have a mover of the delegates' reports?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Administrators, I now require a motion to close the meeting to the public under section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 for consideration of confidential items. Item 6.4.1, 2020-32, construction of McLean's Road Kindergarten, Bundoora, tender evaluation report regarding the confidential attachment, and item 11.5.1, land acquisition, Woodstock. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Do I have a seconder?
Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bilson. Be reopening the council meeting. In relation to the last report, the reports from delegates, I had a mover, Administrator Duncan, and a seconder from Administrator Bilson. I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. There being no further business, I now declare this meeting closed. Thank you.